pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Is there anyone here for public input? Anyone for public input? Anyone? All right, review and approve council agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Consent agenda items. Item A, approve 7/6/2020 council meeting minutes. Item B, approve splash pad refurbish. Item C, approve massage enterprise license for Create Your Own Mood LLC. Item D, approve purchase replacement squad number 204. And item E, approve eligibility expiration of December 31st for maintenance worker position.
I'd like to pull B and D.
B and D.
Yes, D as in dog.
Somebody want to move to approve ACE?
So move.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Frank, item B.
Yeah, when I asked about doing this, I thought staff was gonna remove them fixtures and basically take the calcium off. I didn't realize it was gonna turn into $20,000 refurbishment. That's the only thing I'm questioning.
Okay.
Do we drop another 20 grand on that, or?
I would
For
imagine.
20 grand, don't you almost get new ones rather than, are they stripping it, like sandblasting them clean and starting over?
You can take your,
What's that?
Your mask.
Oh, I can?
yeah, to
Oh,
talk. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, they're gonna basically, I'll just read it. They're gonna bring it down to the shop, deep clean each feature, sand, recoat with an industrial coating, and then reinstall them back.
So they don't clear coat that either with something that maybe would help slough that off there.
No, and there's nothing that will. The only thing that will work is soften the water, which we're trying to get a price on.
So is this done in the state of Minnesota?
Yeah,
So would they get shipped somewhere,
just in the state somewhere, wherever they're using.
wherever they're located from?
Right, right.
Okay, then my other question is, if we do that, can they be housed, or can they store them and only install them until next spring?
Yeah.
So we don't
that's
leave
what
them
I was-
exposed either for the
Right.
winter?
Right, yeah.
All right.
I was planning on doing that, it's just not
Okay.
in here, right?
Well, I just didn't want to go see them bolted back in over winter. What was the
Well,
point
yeah,
of
that'd be dumb.
Yeah.
Right, and there's nothing we can do in the treatment train as far as a pool to get rid of the calcium to stop that. So the only thing we can do is look at doing softened water, which we're getting quotes on right now, once I get that back. And look at adding that down there, which isn't gonna be all that terrible to do, cause we don't use that much. It's recycled, but we only use maybe 5,000 gallons a day, so it's not gonna be as cumbersome, it's not gonna be as obtrusive and costly to do that. So if we do that, we get our calcium down to nothing, then that should make that whole thing, even the play features, the benches, all that stuff. It's got that chalky white, so.
Okay, well, when I first read it, the whole idea is, but spending $20,000 to do this didn't appeal to me much, but I do believe on some of the mushrooms, there was still damage from when they were basically newer skateboarders.
I'd have to look at it, Frank.
Rode up on the edge of them mushrooms and tried to do tricks off of them or something like
They
that.
probably did, yeah.
So I would imagine that damage is still there, so
We'll look at,
now I'm okay with,
Well, the only problem I would was this in the budget at all, or is this coming out
No.
of where?
Is that a park funds?
Parkland
Park
fund,
fund.
Gonna come out of the park money?
Yep.
right, right,
I assume the park board's kind of okay that we're
yeah.
gonna spend.
So that's
Their
all
money
right
for it.
to use that type of fund for
Yep.
that?
I'm gonna move to approve item B.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. And item D, Frank.
Is that, I guess, normally what we do is just take them funds that were short to replace this squad out of just cash?
Not here. That was Keith's recommendation, that we
Okay.
do it this way. We have, two squads that we're still waiting.
That we didn't get delivery for.
Have, hopefully will be soon, but this was in the crash, it was totaled and it needs to be replaced, so it's just one of those things. But that was Keith's recommendation as to how we deal with it under the circumstances. You know, it's a 2006 model, it's depreciated in value, and that thus we're not getting the full replacement on the insurance, so.
But there's lights and components and,
Yes, in fact, that,
holsters,
what was not damaged, actually, most of the, well, all of the interior was not damaged. So the cage, the radio, the radar detector, all that stuff
Bracketry,
will
all
be
that.
taken, has already been taken out as of today, and we'll be able to go into a new one. The cage, the plastic seat that we use in the back, that stuff will go, we'll save some there, but there was just a lot of heavy front-end damage on it, and the frame was bent, so that's what totaled the vehicle.
all right. I'll move to approve item D.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Regular agenda items. Item A, amendment to ordinance 25, Fire Department.
So what you have in front of you is something that the fire department worked on. I'm trying to pull it up here. Looking at making some modifications to the ordinance to assist them with maybe some of the recruitment and retention. And what they were looking at were when numbers get below 25 members, that the chief would have some discretion on waiving some of the requirements. And essentially it's dealing with the response time. It'll allow them to maybe help address some of those kinds of situations. And so I applaud Chief Alshire and the officers for coming up with this. I know, Council, you've had an opportunity to speak with the chief as well regarding this, so I think unless there's any questions,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to have any.
Does this still read correctly that it's not and/or when they refer to responding from residence or place of employment? Because there's times, Jim, you can't even respond from place of employment in 9 minutes.
That's correct, Frank, but the reside, if you read it, it says you reside in the city of Wade Park, that's an automatic eligibility for the department.
Right.
Yep.
Yep, it says reside in the city of Waite Park or be able to respond to the fire station within 9 minutes from residence and place of employment.
That's correct.
Yeah,
So
we
you
talked
gotta
about that
comply
last.
with both.
We talked about that last time, and
Yeah,
my
we
city
talked-
attorney told me that was the
I-
way it should read.
Yeah, I know we talked about it then, but I'm still asking.
Yep, that is correct. Again, in the work session that I visited, I explained that to you already, where the evolution of this response time has come from and the direction it's been heading. And at some point in time, we have to draw a line, or our response time is not going to be efficient enough
Right.
to operate a fire department.
Questions
So it
answered?
still should read to me and/or, because you can respond from your residence in 9 minutes, but during the day, you can't respond from your place of work in 9 minutes.
Again, the ordinance starts out with reside in the city of Way Park. Now, the evolution of this, again, I'll refresh your memory, started out where you had to live in the city of Wade Park to be eligible to be a firefighter.
Yep.
So we've made addendums to this over several years to where at a point where we're getting this stretched out further and further and further. Now, back to your question in the 9 minutes, was put in place to help with daytime response. And that's why it is written the way it is.
So Frank, if you look at it, if you reside in the city of Wade Park, that's one, okay?
Yep.
Okay, or
Where's or?
reside in the city of Wade Park, or, right
Oh,
after that.
be able.
Then, so that number one is reside in Wade Park, or two, be able to respond to the fire station within 9 minutes from the resident and place of employment. So the first one is if you live in the city of Wade Park, you can be a firefighter. If you don't live in the city of Wade Park, you have to be able to respond to the fire station within 9 minutes from your residence and from your place of employment.
I mean, if that's how you want it to read, but,
Yeah, we went through it last time.
I know.
I agree with you, but
and I
I was
read it again
outvoted.
and it's like, I still don't like the verbiage, but.
Do you have any suggestions?
Well, your suggestion is and/or.
Yeah, but Paul talked me out of that last time, so. And he's still shaking his head yes, so.
I would note that, given that there's a, section D1 that indicates that if the staffing level falls below 25 members, then there's an option to waive or modify the employment requirement, which would, to a degree, address the issue that Frank is raising, as to having a requirement that it be both the place of, residence and the employment. There's language built in there where that modification can happen, but we would require some degree of need, which in this case is being identified as if we fall below 25 employees, then need would trigger that next clause. Or
Okay.
kind of horizons there.
Well, I have one question also. When we say they have to be able to respond from their employer by 9 minutes, is there any agreement between the employer and the employee that you have that says they're gonna be able to come in 9 minutes, that they're gonna get off and be able to come in 9 minutes?
That
has to
always
be-
starts out initially with, during the employment or the hiring process. People change jobs all the time. So what ends up happening there is we monitor the response percentages and the attendance for drills, meetings and such. So sometimes, yeah, the employment might sneak out there a little further, but as long as they're meeting the minimum requirements, we haven't done anything disciplinary wise or anything of that nature.
No, I think my question more is, that the employer agrees that if they're gonna be a firefighter, they're gonna give them that time to come and fight the fire.
I don't think there's anything written like
No,
that between.
we don't.
Well, I'm
we
just
don't-
But it
Person
does get
and the-
addressed and brought up during the application process that they need to
Right.
do that. And it's a question that you ask directly.
Yep.
No, I'm just curious.
Yep.
Yeah. And in fact, those that haven't had that opportunity to approach that subject, make them go back and do that prior to doing anything with it.
Correct. Now, do we go back and get a new letter from everybody every time they switch employment? No, we do not. Again, we use the rules that we have in place as far as the response requirements, and as long as they meet them, that's as far as we go with that.
Yeah, you're holding the employee accountable.
The
firefighter,
employee,
yes.
yep.
Yeah, because there could be times they go back to their employer and ask and they will say no.
I was just
That-
curious as to how you handle that.
Yep, that is true.
But it
There-
still could be a person we want because they may be available during the daytime hours because they work nights,
Exactly, and that's,
so.
again, I kind of explained that during the work session, that it's kind of a balance of trying to make this whole thing work. You know, there's some good we can draw from some people where they're not gonna help us at others, and vice versa, other people aren't available at other times. but they can help us at other
Yeah,
times.
I
So
think the
it's-
day will come where you're gonna have different staffing at different hours, times of the day
It could very well
to
be.
manage that.
Yep,
Yeah.
and that's, again, I've talked to you about duty crews before, and that's where that goes. That's the beginning of that process. Where we get a duty crew situation set up, where we got people that we know are gonna be here at certain times, and other people at other times, where we could set up a schedule of that sort.
And it kind of started down that path with captains being here and you, at least
Correct.
one weekend.
It is, it's, the officers share 6 weeks, every 6 weeks, there's different officers on duty for the weekend, so.
All right, I'll move to
Hold
approve.
it, I got a question for you. You know, it says or within 9 minutes. Our boundaries to the south of us, it's gonna take up that 9 minutes and better if someone lives out in that southern boundary.
Yeah, but it also says if you live in if you live in Way Park, that already eliminates the 9 minutes out of it.
Right.
But you're contradicting.
We are giving preference to the members or the citizens of the city of Wade Park to serve their city as firefighters.
That's all right.
Huh?
That will be all right then.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Frank, did you make a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll move to approve item A, amendment to ordinance 25.
I'll second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Item B, interim use permit, gravel pit, County Road 138, County Road 121.
Since I don't have a camera, I might just
Okay.
use this for any displays I need. Council members, mayor, anyone at home, this is a request, again, for an interim use permit to allow for what we call extractive use. It would be a gravel pit in this case, in an A1 Ag Rural Residential District. This property is at the vicinity of County Road 138 and County Road 121. Recently had a transfer of ownership. The request has been submitted by W.D. Shapaniak out of Holdingford with permission of the property owner for the interim use permit to allow for a 20-year mining project on the property west of the hard drives pit and west of the what's frequently referred to as the Hyde Hurgis property. Impacted area will only be those north and west of County Road 138. The owner has property part of these parcels on the south and east side of County Road 138, but there's no proposed impacts at that location. There's a farmhouse, existing home farm site on the property, but the proposed project works around and maintains those aspects of the property, and someone would continue to live there from my understanding. The applicants have been coordinating with city staff since earlier this year when they approached the city regarding the feasibility and viability of the proposed project. Thank you. The intent of the business would be to extract sand and gravel for commercial use and sale for the estimated 20 years, working approximately 2 to 5 acres at a time through smaller tracts of the property. No permanent structures associated with this project. All equipment would be portable. The list of the potential equipment that could be on site would include portable crushers, screens, loaders, generators, wash plants, classifiers, concrete plant, and asphalt plant. Again, not all of these would be necessarily on the property at any one time, but they are the equipment associated with the sort of use that could be utilized. No explosives proposed for use with this operation. The applicants estimate the life of the project would yield approximately 70,000 tons of Class 5 or Class 6 gravel, 150,000 tons of washed rock and sand, and 150,000 tons of select granular borrow. We did have discussion with the planning commission, and they recommended some conditions limiting hours be established so as to not negatively impact residents in the vicinity of the project. The proposed operation is 6 days of the week, which staff nor planning commission nor any residents expressed any concerns with. The applicants did advise that most of the activity is based on the customer needs of the project. All water is kept on site via dewatering into existing grasslands to recycle the water back into the pit. The staff has been in contact with the Sauk River Watershed District regarding the proposal, and they didn't really express any concern except noting that erosion control need to be maintained to their standards, as well as potential reclamation plan for home lots might be impacted by stormwater pond design standards. We did contact Stearns County because of the frontage on the 2 county roads, and their staff also provided information regarding curb cuts or limits. They advised that they would potentially limit any new approach or curb cut into the pit through their office, then they'd be subject to the intersections setbacks. Ultimate reclamation intent for the area, again, would be a mixture of pasture and ponds, including the potential home sites. At time of the reclamation, applicants will be responsible for submittal of reclamation plan in accordance with our standards. As you may be aware from other mining requests, we have the option to require a performance bond. And I would recommend that in this case, if there's approval, that we would require a bond amount in the amount of $500,000, similar to the recent MTL mining project on Grandview Road, both to serve as an incentive for to complete reclamation and ensure that if needed, the city has resources to undertake the work as may be needed. The Planning Commission reviewed the request at their July meeting and recommended approval with minor revisions to conditions of approval reflected in the updated conditions that you have before you. One adjacent property owner expressed concern but was satisfied with explanations from the applicant at the meeting and updated conditions of approval. Those being noted, I would recommend approval of the interim use permit to allow mining and extractive use for a period of 20 years, subject to the 17 conditions noted. If there's a preference, I can read through, but otherwise I don't necessarily have to.
Council, got any questions?
Couple of real quick ones, I guess. How deep is this pit? And are they ever gonna be dewatering out there that may cause the neighbors or neighboring houses to dry their wells out? And who's responsible?
There was some discussion on the dewatering. The dewatering basically does not impact any adjacent properties because we know that the water is kind of hard to come by in that area as far as wells or locations. That was a concern that the neighbors had. The applicants explained that the way the water system utilizes, it doesn't draw down any of the wells. It is all kept on site and recycled. There's also a state statute which does protect adjacent property owners if there is any negative impact for any reason, that the property owners can lay claim with the operation and have that addressed if there's any negative impacts to their wells at all. As far as the depth, let me take a look here. I know we have that information. I don't know if I necessarily have it in front of me at the moment, though. I apologize.
Were they going 100 feet down, 150, 200?
I don't have the actual depth number on the site plans here. Just the proposed site locations, kind of as they would work through the site.
Was there ever an environmental assessment worksheet done on it?
There's no environmental
Area?
assessment worksheet with this, no.
Pardon me?
There was not an environmental assessment worksheet done with this. We don't have a requirement in our ordinance for completion of EAW.
Environmental worksheet?
We don't have a requirement for that within our mining or extractive use ordinance. If you wish to incorporate that as a condition, that's certainly within your purview.
What would be the advantage of that, Mike?
Well, usually when a builder comes in, they say, I got 40 acres out here I want to develop. They have to do an environmental worksheet to see if there's anything on that particular property that could be detrimental if that property is lost. It's just one of those legal things that I know they used to have to do it, but not sure why it isn't required, especially on a project like this when you're taking in that much acreage for a gravel pit. So in other words, they come up and assess what kind of wild plants you have, animals live on it, wildlife, all that. It's like a assessment of the area to make sure that if there's something that should not be taken away, that it doesn't get taken away.
I will note that as part of the proposed conditions of approval, they do have to meet all applicable state, any federal standards. So there is review by DNR, there's review by state agencies, MPCA, they have to acquire air quality permits. So there is some level of review above and beyond just the city aspects that are incorporated with the interim use permit.
And
But
many-
if there's a desire to require an EAW, that's absolutely fine to incorporate that as a
And in many
condition.
times, those things are required by one of the other agencies. Isn't that correct, John?
Yeah, kind of like John said, there's different levels of environmental studies and different thresholds that kick all of those in. EIS, and I'm not an expert on this subject, but EIS is kind of the most stringent and it's pretty rarely kicked in. EAWs are a little less intensive and more common.
In the,
I think this project doesn't require those studies, as I understand it.
no, if there was a requirement that it had to be done, it would be outlined within the ordinance that it's a part of the approval, or excuse me, the submittal requirement. Typically, not saying that it would be for this project, but the vast majority of EAW studies come back and say no negative impacts or no concerns, and that's the end of it.
All right, any other questions?
Well, to the best of my memory, this is all pretty much tillable land.
That's
Yeah, it
correct.
is. Or horses, horse
There's not gonna
pasture.
be-
It's horse pasture, what are they gonna
Yeah,
do with their
I mean,
horses?
Yeah, so I
I'd
think
make a
20
motion
years
to-
is a long time, but I'm ready to move.
I have a
the-
motion to approve.
Oh, who made the motion?
Well, I'd make a motion to approve with the conditions that were presented.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Item C, variance, Independent School District 742 electronic sign, Quarry View.
Again, this application is from ISD 742 for variance, particularly from Wade Park Ordinance Section 53.12 subdivision 5, signs relating to schools, and Table 53-2 to allow for incorporation of electronic display into the existing monument sign at Quarry View at 900 7th Street South. The main factor here is that the property is zoned R1, single-family residential district, in which the monument signs are limited to 24 square feet and 6 feet in height, but it also limits or prevents the allowance of electronic displays for school signs. You may recall that in 2017, you saw this request in an earlier format, both to increase the size and height allowance for the signs and to allow for the 2 electronic signs at Quarry View and Discovery. We were supportive, staff was just supportive of the request, and the Planning Commission made a recommendation to the council for approval at that time. The council ultimately approved some height and size variance for the signs, but denied the request for electronic sign allowance, citing concerns with adjacent properties. The district did move forward with a revised design at that time, just pretty much taking the electronic display out of the equation and replacing it with just the panels that are there now that denote the properties. But the ISD staff later took it upon themselves to kind of privately approach a few of you to discuss concerns with the sign, as they still had an interest in pursuing the electronic signage at some point. I don't typically support the practice of making a second attempt at our project after it's been denied once, but it's certainly within the right of the applicant to do so. In their current application, the sign district is opting to pursue the electronic sign only for Quarry View and only for incorporation within the existing framework of the sign. It's not a new sign, it's just replacing basically the interior area of the sign with that display, only for Quarry View, not for both signs that are there.
I do still believe that the size of the proposed electronic display is consistent with the scale and frontage of the property. Screen size would be appropriate. I think it's, if it were a commercial building, it would be small for that particular property. The general size and design of the proposed signage are consistent with other school district properties as they've been moving towards a unified sign design language. Although the electronic signs are not typically allowed for schools or in the R1 residential districts, I do believe that their purpose of promoting the public information and awareness of school and community activities is in keeping with the intent and spirit of the ordinance. I had recommended consideration of neighboring residential properties that could have sight lines of electronic display by suggesting programming options which reduce the nighttime concerns, such as avoiding the blue or white that are really more prominent at night than most other colors in the auto dimming display. The school district has addressed those concerns in their application materials, noting that they would like the sign turned on at approximately 7 a.m. and off by 8 p.m. and can program that schedule. That's the one nice thing about these electronic signs is most of the concerns with them can be addressed just by punching it in a keyboard until it's satisfactory. We also have a primary intent of the sign to inform drivers of people crossing the street at peak times, which has been a recurring safety concern that has taken up with staff and city council several times. The configuration of the sign would have minimal impact to neighbors and apartments across the street. Although the nearest residential home to the west of the sign may experience impact, that resident was in attendance at the planning commission meeting, and he really didn't have any major current concerns with that. He knows he'll see it, but recognizes that the benefit probably outweighs any drawback because of the pedestrian issues in that area and concerns. I do believe that the applicant has demonstrated practical difficulties, primarily due to the scale of the property with relation to the existing standards. I believe it will be in line with other uses and not detrimental to these existing uses, and I would recommend approval of the request. The Planning Commission also reviewed the request at their July meeting and recommended approval as well. That'll conclude my report.
Council, any questions?
Yeah, that sign is on the east side of that driveway, isn't it?
No, is it?
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
Not according to this, it's on the west side.
yeah, it's on the east side of the driveway, not the west side of the driveway.
Adam, east side or west side? Right where it is. So it's on the west side.
When did you move it? You got two signs there. You got one up by the school and one up here
Yeah,
and
one
by
by
up on 7th Street.
The one we're talking about is the one where you come out of this, down the sidewalk, right out of the school, and it's
Right.
immediately right there, right by the sidewalk.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's the east.
that's the east of that driveway,
Yes.
not the west.
So where the holding pond,
Do you want?
Holding pond is right there where you got your sign.
that where the sign location is, it's holding pond,
Mm-hmm.
right there, and
Yep.
then there's the driveway.
And then the sign.
Another sign is over by the white walkway, but that's where our sign is.
The others, yeah, there's two.
There's one for Quarry View and one for
So you're gonna
Discovery.
move, you're gonna wanna move the other sign then over to there?
No,
No,
We have one there right now, it's
Just
up
leave
there.
it.
The picture,
no, there's one there and there's one here. They just want to make this electronic.
The
Just one.
two signs are very close in design. The request is only for the sign that pertains to Quarry View.
yep, just the one that, so people know
I see.
where our driveway is.
The one at Corey View, you said.
Right,
Right
Yes.
there, right by the holding pond.
yep.
Yep.
All right, any other questions?
What size is that going to be? Is it gonna be enlarged?
it's in the frame, the thing, the sign is there.
It's what's right there now. They're just going to
They're
make it
gonna take out
electronic.
They're taking out the panel and putting an electronic card in there.
Okay, for an electronic storage, we only can do 24 square feet without a variance.
No, the size aspects for the sign was already addressed a couple years ago when it came for the first time. The issue that's being requested is to allow for the electronic display at all, which are right now under ordinance prohibited in the R1 district. I would note, and Frank is probably closest to this. We do have areas where we have electronic signs that are pretty close proximity to residential areas, just as a function of their respective zoning. Probably the most prominent example is Rejuve. A couple years ago, they put in a electronic display at their sign at the corner, and it's residential right across the street, and I've not heard any concerns with it at any point.
Any other questions?
I would move to approve.
I'll second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Wow.
Mayor, can you break the tie?
We already voted it down the first time.
It was voted down 2 years ago.
All I hear from this council all the time is, and you're one of them, mister, is that we need electronic signs out to promote our city. Independent School District is gonna do this, help us do this for nothing.
And we should do the ordinance over.
For nothing, they're gonna do it.
What are they gonna put on there for the city?
Vote today, could be a baseball tournament in the summertime, could be, play soccer down here, cause they're getting soccer fields
Soccer
down there.
fields.
Could be anything.
We also, they're gonna build that basketball court somewhere on
Yeah.
that piece of property.
I think we're missing a heck of an opportunity. Those signs are 20, 25, 30, you know that. We've looked at them, $30,000. And all of a sudden, we decided that we're gonna give it
We
up.
shot this down 2 years ago. We had the big argument back
And-
then about this,
Let me,
especially in that area.
And we have no complaints. The only guy that would have complained is the guy that came to the meeting and said he had no
Yes.
problems with
the
it.
guy who's, who lives in the house directly abutting this.
And the guy that would have complained if he would have had a concern, and he doesn't.
You know, when we voted this down, and Chuck Schneider was with us then, and I think Chuck kind of regretted voting it down at that point, and it was only maybe a few months after. I know it was after a council meeting, and Chuck said, bring it back, you know, they should bring it back, and they didn't bring it back while the time Chuck was still with us.
Right.
And so that brings us to this point, and I was for it then, and you guys made this argument like cars were gonna drive into it like flies, like moths on a flame.
Yeah.
Was the conversation then, and it's time to approve it. I mean, We should have did this
how
long
long
time
have we
ago.
talked about lighting down there for kids to get across the road? This is a perfect sign that says school's in session, kids crossing right now.
slow down.
Slow down. How many times have we talked about that? How many millions of dollars are we gonna spend as a city to get these signs and get this stuff down there when the school district is gonna give it to us for nothing? Absolutely nothing.
They just need a little assistance in getting it done.
You missed a hell of an opportunity. Unless somebody wants to unless one of you two wanna bring it back and we can vote on it again.
Is there any way we can bring it back when we have our other council member here?
Sure. We can
No.
bring it back. We can bring it back as often as
Ken's
they
here?
want. We can just deny them, not to bring
I think that you have to, if you're gonna reconsider the motion,
Yes?
I think you have to have one of them that voted
Right,
against it
I think that's right. I think that's the way it's structured.
yes.
to be able to bring it up for reconsideration.
You're
Well,
missing the boat.
We allowed them to put that sign that they have there now because they took the lights out of them in the first place. Now they wanna come back and put in basically the same size as what we denied them for. If they would come back to
It's,
the size that we allow,
He has to let you do that.
Can I,
then I may be in favor of coming.
Mike, that isn't the issue. It's the size.
Size.
Size,
No, the
it's-
size fits, right? The size fits. It's a matter of putting electronic sign near a residential area.
The
That
last-
is the issue.
The last time it was too bright of lights, they couldn't dim them, they couldn't do this, they didn't know that. Now they say they can dim them, they can turn them on at 7, turn them off at 8, they can dim them. And like I said, the only guy that would complain about this has said it's okay. Adam, go ahead if you have something.
Yeah, the main reason, at first it was 2 signs. When I first got hired, it got turned down before I came in, there was 2 signs. And then I was working with Sergeant Jensen, and the issue is, especially in the morning, the amount of cars that are going up and down, and we have to have a police car there. And everybody keeps asking, why is there police with the lights? This sign allows us to put, please slow down, buckle up, kids crossing. It's gonna allow us at night to do GED free tests here for the community. We also talked about our partnership with the park, and then it'll allow us to change for like the citywide pickup. The whole key was to bring partnership together, but the main thing is that road in front of our elementary school. That's why we went from 2 signs to 1, because we upgraded to the highest sign they offer. It's dimmable, it has this photo eye, but it's gonna make sure that when the kids cross the street from the apartment, everybody can see that we have little ones crossing besides those little blinking lights. And we did this, and we raised all the money in partnership with our police department so that people know it's just a normal street, it's a normal school. It's not one that needs a police car every morning, because they're our friends. And then that's why we came up with the partnership, and we went down from 2, 1 at each end, to 1, and highlighted the fact that it's all about safety and partnering. We also want people to know at night, we heard from our neighbor multiple times, the first house there, about the speeding cars on weekends. And we shared with him after the meeting, we can put signs, he can partner, we can type up signs, we'll work with the chief, slow down, you know, however you phrase the correct phrasing. So it's more of a partnership, and if anybody doesn't like it, we dim it down. We can, if they want it off, like during certain times, and we just turn it off. But the key is to help core review. People know where the right way to go, and they don't go down to Discovery and cut through. It's our main entrance, but the before school is such a key component to what we're doing. And that's why we upgraded to the highest thing that they have right now in the market. So it's clear, it's precise, and it gets our point across. Safety, safety, safety on that road.
Anybody get
Well,
convinced?
let me say something. Something like this is a prime example of why I think we rushed too much on the initial voting. We should have some more hearsay from people like himself there, and opinions amongst us before it's pushed out to a quick vote. Then you may not run into problems like we're running into right now. I think that's been happening too much too lately, where we should take a few minutes to talk about really what the plan is, and his explanation was a little bit clearer before we have to make a rushed decision. So I think we got to start slowing down a little bit when we come to some of this stuff before.
Well, not only that, if we're gonna make a variance, and you're talking about popping signs up all over the place, then we need to go back to the ordinance and look at the ordinance to see what needs to be adjusted in the ordinance. And we don't need to go through this variance process if you're looking to have signs pop up all over the city. I mean, that's what it sounds like. Now, I'm more than willing to consider changing my vote back to a yes vote, but I really am definitely against the way this process has been operating. I don't like this, and I think we get left out until all of a sudden it's an emotional appeal we have to respond to. And I don't care for that either. But this makes good sense. I mean, I'm comfortable with that, but I just don't like the process and how it went. We don't get enough time to go through this stuff and talk about it and think why we're doing this. Where else may it be applicable? We just wander in and say, okay, we're going to do this, and we jump on it. And that bothers me. I think we need to stop, like Mike said, and do a little discussion first.
You had this for, you've known about this for 2 years.
yeah,
You've had it in, you had it in your minutes.
2 years.
We gave you an opportunity to ask questions. I didn't hear any questions.
Well, it's because we voted it down 2 years ago, based on the same thing.
No, it's not based on the
No.
same thing. That was two different signs. If you're gonna change your opinion, go ahead.
Okay,
and make a
I
motion.
think, I think we've got our point across. With some of the new information, with the possibilities that this sign is going to be used for, in partnership with the school. you know, I hate to do it, but it's possibly, as long as the brightness can be controlled and there's no complaints from the neighbors. I know there's just a few, but I don't know, what do you have to do?
Make a motion to approve.
You have to make a motion to reconsider.
Okay, I'll make a motion to reconsider the previous vote on the interim, or the variance.
I would urge caution against having it taken down upon a complaint from a neighbor. I think you can, I would recommend that.
I'm not saying taking, I'm just saying we'll just,
Okay,
Let him get the motion out.
okay,
Yeah.
I just don't want it to be that
Yeah,
there's a complaint, you gotta tear the sign down.
yeah, no,
Can I second his motion?
Yes.
He's
yeah,
done?
anyone can.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we gotta make a motion to approve it?
Okay, Mike, I'll
still
make
will.
the motion to approve.
I'll
Against my
second.
better
Kim.
judgment.
I'll second you, Vic.
I have a motion and a second from two different individuals. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adam, it's gotta be your size or your great intelligence that got this passed through here.
Thank you, and please take time, if you can, to come over and see the great work of your chief in our new basketball court and you.
Oh, all right.
It's in there, you'll be invited, but thank you for. that
Thank you.
part's
All right.
Pretty special, thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Thanks.
Good night. Item D, consider resolution placing the abolishment of personnel board on November 3rd election.
In front of you is a resolution that if you are interested in considering the abolishment of the Civil Service Board, that you would need to pass. Passing of that then would authorize that to be placed on the ballot for the November 3rd election. For those at home, the Civil Service Board is a board that's been in place for as long as I can remember. I don't even know the start date of that.
Long before you.
Long before me. And essentially what it has done is it has had some authority over the personnel here within the city of Waite Park that fall under that. Typically it is your hourly employees that are covered under that. It has had and served a really good purpose for the city. It's assisted us with the hiring process. They've also had some other additional things within that, along with having some discretion of looking at, you know, any person that's been terminated, looking at job classifications, job descriptions, a whole number of other things that over time have been probably less important for that group to have that role. Simply because employee protections, the evolution of unions that have come in have all played a different role and have provided those protections for the employees. And so the council has had this discussion at a work session to maybe look at that. As part of that, we also talked with the Civil Service Board. We've also sent a memo out to our employees. We do still have an intention, if this does move forward and if it would be considered approved on the ballot, that we would look at doing and utilizing our existing board as a hiring committee to still assist us in that process. So if you are choosing to want to move forward with it, the resolution would need to be approved. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
What is this called? Is this called the Civil Service Board, or is it called the Civil Service Personnel System, or person?
It's
What's the official name?
under the statute. The statute refers, from what I was told when this was being put together by Brandon's office, is to refer to it as a Civil Service Personnel Board.
Is that what the wording is?
That's what they had given
I've
me.
always read it.
I know,
Civil
that's, we
Service
always call it the
It's
Civil
always
Service
been the
Board.
Civil Service Board.
And
This is kinda
actually, in
confusing.
our ordinance, it actually
the
refers
last
to
100
it as
years,
the
yeah.
Civil Service Board, but under the statute, which is what this falls under, I think there's some reference to the Personnel Board, so that's why it's the Civil Service Personnel Board.
Just trying to get it clear as to what it is.
Just need one
'cause
more letter in
That's
it.
why Paul gets that big money, so he just adds words to it.
I would, at this, I'd make a motion to approve this resolution as long as, if it does get packed, that the city council works together with our personnel person and the three-member board that we would choose to work along with them before we enact it.
Got a policy up.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing that you need to understand, just so, because I understand what you're saying, you have to understand though that once it actually gets voted on, it's like abolished immediitally. So there,
Right,
yeah,
but once, if it gets abolished, that we
You
as
would
a
do it.
council sits down and
Yep.
works with
Civil service,
our
the former
HR
civil service.
person and
Yep.
the three board personnel.
Right.
Hiring board,
Yep.
to make sure that we get it correct, and
Yep.
from that point, it's followed
Yep.
properly.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Item E, consider police department appointments.
All right, we will have two motions tonight. The first motion is the offer of conditional employment to Kelty Gaultier for the position of police secretary with a starting salary of pay grade 4, step 4, and 2 weeks vacation, afforded on the condition of successful background check.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
The next motion is for a conditional employment offer to Alex, I cannot pronounce the name, Zaboj.
Zaboy.
Thank you, Alex Zaboy, excuse me, and Joseph Joe Swanson for the positions of police officer with a starting salary of pay grade 7, step 1, on condition of successful completion of the background check, and with the eligibility list established for 1 year.
the eligibility list for 1 year for that one, yes, and then also, we have to establish the eligibility list for the police secretary, just to make sure, I think we missed that part.
We'll do that back with another motion.
I'll
6
second.
minutes, 6
Further
months.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Now you want to make the eligibility list for the secretaries?
Yes. Make a motion to establish the eligibility list for the secretary for 6 months.
And the date on that, because it's always good to have a date, is January 3rd, 2021.
January 3rd, 2021.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Item F, consider SCADA upgrades. Bill?
Thank you, Council. And I know you spelled it out, but I refer to it as SCADA, if you just sound it out as a word. It's an industry term, so for people at home, it's supervisory control and data acquisition software. It runs our water plant, sewer plants, it runs a lot of stuff, manufacturing, so it's a processing program that runs everything down there. So that's the software. We have 2 hardware computers sitting down there that this software is installed on. And then to be able to talk from the computers through the software out to the equipment, those are called PLCs. They're processors, programmable logical. So just giving you a little brief update of what the terminology that you see inside your request today. The plant was built in 2001. We went online in May. And this software, processors, are all still original equipment. We've tapped as much life out of them as we possibly can. Wanted to replace them last year. The big problem with it was, last year in the budget, I put $400,000 for this project. We're under $165,000 or $165,000. So the big issue back then was to convert the old logical software to the new programming language. They said it was going to take probably 400 hours to do that. Well, they've done a number of these since then, and so they figured out how to streamline that, so we got the benefit of that. That's why the cost is so much cheaper, what I saw from the original numbers. So that's a huge benefit to us. They've learned how to do different shortcuts to change the programming over. Right now, we have 2 main computers in the plant. One's we call it A and a B. A runs the plant, B is the backup. We lost a computer here about 4 months ago. It's running on an older system. Larry can tell me exactly what it is, but all I know is that you cannot buy a computer, can't find a computer anywhere to run the software that we have. He did find one. His mom upgraded one, so he grabbed his mom's old one, and that's sitting down there right now with the hard drive taped to the top of it to get us by. So, like I said, we've changed out the computers over 5-7 years. We do that, but it's easy, you just upload the software into it and you can up and running. So it doesn't pay to go down and get a new computer because it's not gonna work with that software. So between Shift Technology and In Control, our integrator, they're gonna try to figure out some way to keep us going in case that something does happen before we can actually get the system up and running. Right now, they're looking at somewhere around April before that would happen. But they need to get this on the books so that we can stay in the pipeline for it. If things go faster, they can work through, pick up more speed with programming other systems, then will be a benefit for us. So right now, I'm asking for the council authorization to do the SCADA program software project for about $163,450. 15 of that, I want to have like a $15,000 contingency in it, because something's going to come up. It's just like doing a street project. Something might pop up. This they call them RTUs. They're just little other modules that are in there. We might find that there might be a couple of those bad. So just giving me a little bit of a cushion so I don't have to come back. So the request is to replace all the software down there, the new with Windows 10 based. That's the other issue that we have with it. Upgrade two processors, the hearts of it, the computers, and also the well houses have 2 old processors in them. So I'll take any questions.
All right. Council, any questions?
Well, I called Keith and talked to him about this before, and it's a project that we do have to get done. The 400,000 is in the water and sewer, which I understand.
Utility, yep.
Which we're not gonna go into the capital expense or our backup budget. So this would come out of the water and sewer fund. It was budgeted, and Keith thought it was a pretty good idea, and he said the stuff that's down there is junk. So, maybe I would take $180,000 and put it in that fund, just to give you some leeway. It's not much, a couple extra thousand, but maybe take 180 and make sure that there's plenty there for contingency, and then the rest goes back into the water and sewer fund from what I understand, so we should be all right if there was concerns of where the money was coming from, and that was my concern, where are we coming from, so I'll make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
Is
Benny,
it,
what are we seconding?
yeah.
Are we
Well,
gonna
he's
are you
already had the
seconding?
15,000 in there as contingency.
163,450 with the 15 contingency in it.
Plus the 15.
Yeah.
No, it's already in there.
It's already in there?
It's
Yeah, I got it. The project is 146 or 148, and
okay.
then I added 15 more to make it to 163. Mike, I appreciate the offer, but let's just stay. I'm fine staying at 15. If something
Can
comes
have
up,
enough, just in case,
if there's something more above that, then I'll come back to you guys, which I think is fair.
then you can come back and ask.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, then I'll
Right.
approve the 163,450
I'll second.
change.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Bill. Approved bills?
Move to pay the bills.
Second?
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. I don't have anything. Shauna?
Just, next week is the primary election.
Oh, yeah, next Tuesday.
Next week is the primary election, so that's on August 11th, so any of you interested in voting, feel free to come down. We do have early voting as well, so you can vote here during the daytime hours. I believe it's from 7:30 to 4:30.
Starting-
I think that's already started.
Great.
Anything else? Bill? Chief? Chief? I got two chiefs sitting back there. Too many chiefs, not enough Indians here tonight. John?
No.
Where we at? Paul? No. John, Lori, anybody?
So we're gonna have probably another work session this month? Okay.
All right, if nothing else, we are adjourned at 7:31.
Great.